Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 96th episode of Don't Forget the Popcorn. I know I skipped last month, a lot going on, a lot of requests, but I'm back with an Everything I Watched July edition. So, we got a lot to cover, so we're just going to get right into it. Got my top five as normal. Like and subscribe, and let's get into it. I Used to Be Funny, 2023, directed by Ali Pankew. Well, I'm a big Rachel Sennett fan, so I really wanted to see this movie. This movie was decent. It was interesting. It was about a young comedian who is struggling from some PTSD from a job that she had. And it's just interesting to see this girl's life kind of change and unravel based on what's going on here. I definitely think it's worth a watch. Rachel Sennett is really coming up in the acting world. She's got dramatic chops mixed with the comedic chops, so that's good. I'm going to suggest I Used to Be Funny to, indie fans. It's got a real indie vibe to it. I'm going to give I Used to Be Funny a 7.5 out of 10. Problemista, 2023, directed by Julio Torres. This is a very silly, interesting movie about an immigrant from I think he's from Guatemala or El Salvador or something like that. I forgot. But he moves to America because he wants to invent toys. And, he finds out that, things are going to be a lot harder than he wanted to. But it's pretty funny. You got Tilda Swinton in here giving an interesting performance as she always does. She's lovely. It's a weird, quirky comedy. If you like, interesting little weird comedies, I'd check it out, but I can't say it's for everyone, but I did like it. I'm going to give Problemista a 7.4 out of 10. The Boy and the Heron, 2023, directed by Hayao Miyazaki. Well, the GOAT is back, and this movie won Best Animated Feature at the Golden Globes and the Oscars. And truthfully, I can see why. It took me forever to see it, but it was worth the wait. This movie is absolutely incredible. It's Hayao Miyazaki. He's a legend. He's a genius. Everything he puts his stamp on is just gold. I mean, if you haven't seen this movie, it is now time to watch. This is a top five of the month for me. I am going to give The Boy and the Heron a 9.2 out of 10. I saw The TV Glow, 2024, directed by Jane Schoenbrunn. Now, I was really excited to see this movie. First things first, I want to say, stylistically, the look of this film, I absolutely loved. The vibe of this film, I absolutely loved. I just didn't love what it was about. It's about this dude who befriends this chick, and they bond over this weird show called The Pink Opaque, which is like, it's supposed to take place in the 90s. It's like it kind of feels like Charm meets, like, I don't know, Buffy the Vampire Slayer or something. I don't know. The show looks terrible, but this film, I thought this was gonna be like a friendship adventure film, but it ended up being something totally different, and it kind of just threw me for a loop. And I can't say I love the direction it went in, but I think this filmmaker should keep making films because they are onto something here. But I can only suggest this to, I don't know. This is one you'd have to just decide for yourself, truthfully. I'm going to give I Saw the TV Glow a 6.9 out of 10. The Lady in Red, 1979, directed by Louis Teague. Now, this film here, I don't know, it just kind of popped up on the radar randomly, and we watched it, and I loved it. It's about a lady who is from the South, and she works, I guess, for her dad on his farm. A lot of weird stuff ends up happening, and this woman ends up in the big city. She kind of is living the life of a criminal. It's really strange, really eerie, but for whatever reason, it works really well. I had a great time with this movie. It's a trippy 70s boy, but if you like 70s kind of action crime movies, I would totally check this out. I'm going to give The Lady in Red a 7.8 out of 10. Night Moves, 1975, directed by Arthur Penn. Classic Gene Hackman film. This little thriller mystery film is about a guy who is a private eye and he is trying to figure out what happened to this lady's daughter. And along the way, he finds out a whole bunch of stuff about his own personal life and all the people around him. It's actually pretty good. It starts a little but it definitely picks up in the second half. So if you're into those 70s, like kind of slow pace, slow burner, suspense films, this is right up your alley. Gene Hackman, he's the man. I'm going to give Night Moves a 7.6 out of 10. A Summer's Tale, 1996, directed by Eric Rohmer. Close to making the top 5, but not quite there. Eric Rohmer, incredible director. You guys have heard me talk about him before. He's absolutely brilliant. And this film is nothing less than that. I love this film. It was absolutely incredible. It's about a young man who spends the summer by himself. He wants to be he's a teacher and he's a musician. And he ends up meeting all these different women while he's on this vacation alone. And he's kind of finding out a lot about himself through these interactions with the women. It's actually very brilliant. If you're into dope French movies, check it out. I'm going to give Summer's Tale an 8.7 out of 10. Little Sister, 2016, directed by Zach Clark. This is an interesting film about a former goth girl who becomes a nun, but ends up coming back into her goth world when she figures out her brother is sick. And it's just an interesting family dynamic movie about, love, life, and what life is about and what you should appreciate out of it. But it's got some quirky little fun stuff. I mean, if you're into weird, if you're into dark stuff, goth shit, this is right up your alley. I actually like this movie quite a bit. I'm going to give Little Sister a 7.3 out of 10. Bad Boys, Ride or Die, 2024, directed by Adel Arbi and Bilal Fallah. Hey, Bad Boys 4. Way better than it should have been. Had a great time with this movie. I mean, it's Bad Boys, man. If you've seen Bad Boys, very similar stories that they always follow. Martin Lawrence, Will Smith, back at it. Great buddy cop shit. Good action in this movie. Great humor. Martin Lawrence stole this show, man. He was the star of this one. Hey, if you're a fan of Bad Boys, you'll like it. It's that simple. I'm going to give Bad Boys Ride or Die a 7.4 out of 10. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, 2024, directed by Wes Ball. I know a lot of people are going to not like my take on this. I didn't like this one, man. I did not like this one. I liked Matt Reeves' films better. To me, this is the worst new Planet of the Apes to come out. It was boring me to tears at some parts. I will say it does pick up in the end a little bit, but for me, it just didn't work. But if you're an Apes fan, you should definitely watch it. You got to check it out, right? I'm going to give Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes a 6 out of 10. A Tale of Autumn, 1998, directed by Eric Rohmer. Now, I'm on my Eric Rohmer stuff, as I've been for a while. This film falls into the 4-piece. It's all the seasons. So I got 2 more seasons to watch. I watched the first 2. Tale of Autumn, another great film. I can't say it's as good as Tale of Summer, but it's pretty close. This one's about really about 2 women who are good friends, and one of them is trying to set the other one up with a man. But at the same time, this same woman, her son's girlfriend is trying to set her up too with a different guy. And it's really interesting and funny. And of course, it gets messy, but it's super fun. I had a great time with it. Like I said, if you're into French cinema, this is up your alley. I'm going to give A Tale of Autumn an 8.5 out of 10. Challengers, 2024, directed by Luca Guadagnino. All right, I'm going to just go ahead and throw it out, man. This is a top 5 of the month. Challengers was everything I wanted it to be. It was not the typical, and I love that. Challengers was fun. Very well shot, very well edited, very intense scenes, an interesting story, and it is written so very well. I gotta give credit to Guadagnino. Zendaya is a superstar, whether you like it or not. Zendaya is a star, and her two co-leads. These kids are coming up big too, man. I've seen them in a lot of stuff recently. They're great actors. I would highly suggest Challengers to anyone, man. If you're a Guadagnino fan, definitely watch this. I'm gonna give Challengers a 9 out of 10. Sudden Impact, 1983, directed by Clint Eastwood. This is the fourth film in the Dirty Harry trilogy, and I gotta say it's the weakest so far. It's not bad. It's a it's a Dirty Harry tale. It's about Clint's trying to catch this woman who's been killing these men, and it's a simple cop plot. It's got some decent action, but it ain't as good as the first three. I'm gonna give Sudden Impact a 6.5 out of 10. Stardust, 2007, directed by Matthew Vaughn. Matthew Vaughn, man, a good director. This is one of his earlier films. We've seen him crank out some really good movies over the last 10 years or so. This film is great. A great kids kind of event. Well, I don't know if you really call it a kids film. There's kind of some heavy stuff in it, but it's a kids adventure film about a fallen star who actually is a human person. And this star ends up falling in love with a guy, but they're on a journey, and everybody's trying to kill this star because the star's heart is the key to eternal youth. It's a pretty good film. Robert De Niro gives a great performance. Michelle Pfeiffer in here bringing it as usual. I would suggest this if you're a fantasy adventure fan. I highly suggest this to you. I'm gonna give Stardust a 7.8 out of 10. Summer of 42, 1971, directed by Robert Mulligan. An interesting coming of age story here about a young boy who has a short lived summer fling with an older woman. And what I think is brilliant about this film is I think this film highlights a lot of things that young boys actually go through around 14, 15 years old. The struggles with learning about women, how to, navigate through your friends and growing up, becoming older, and just learning about life, the human body, things like that. This is a film I'd actually show my 14-year-old son if I have one. But I would highly suggest this if you're a coming of age fan. I'm going to give Summer of 42 a 7.4 out of 10. The First Slam Dunk, 2022, directed by Takehiko Inoue. All right, top 5 of the month. Let's get this out of the way. This movie is incredible. One of the best anime films to come out in years. This, Suzume, and Boy and the Heron are easily the 3 best anime films to come out, post 2020. They are the pinnacles. This film is hard, bro. Whether you're a sports fan or not, you don't have to like basketball. You don't have to like anime. If you like anime, you'll love this. If you like basketball, you'll love this. The intense story, all wrapped up in this single basketball game, is fucking incredible. The way they executed this, I was mind blown. I am familiar with the TV series because I am an anime fan. You don't need to see the series to understand this. This movie is dope. I would suggest this to anybody. I'm going to give The First Slam Dunk a 9.5 out of 10. Reds, 1981, directed by Warren Beatty. Well, Warren Beatty, he's a great director. He's a great actor. He's a great writer. Warren Beatty was born to be in Hollywood, and I think this movie just proves it. A little bit long. Didn't need to be 3 hours. We could have cut this probably to 240, but you get a very interesting story about a man who's trying to bring communist ideas to America. And he goes from being a simple journalist to a revolutionary activist. And it's actually really crazy and quite impressive how he executed this film. But at the same time, this movie at its core is about his relationship with his woman, and it's a complicated one. But It is one, and I think Warren Beatty and Diane Keaton give some really great performances in this movie. And I'm not even a big Diane Keaton fan, but I thought she was great in this film. If you're into war films, long epics, this is right up your alley. I'm gonna give Reds an 8.4 out of 10. The Piano, 1993, directed by Jane Campion. This is a movie I saw a long time ago, but I hadn't seen it in a while. I wanted to revisit it. This film is way better than I remembered, but it's still not great. But I will say, I think Harvey Keitel and Holly Hunter give some great performances, and they have great chemistry. Why Anna Paquin got put up for an Oscar for this, I'm not sure, but she's good too. This film is about a mute woman who pretty much communicates through her piano and her daughter. And she ends up with Sam Neill, but then ends up falling in love with Harvey Keitel. And the shit gets kind of crazy. If you're a period piece fan, a drama fan, check this out. I'm going to give The Piano a 7.7 out of 10. Holiday Heart, 2000, directed by Robert Townsend. Now, this here was a request from a subscriber that I did. I have a review on this. I can link it below if you'd like to see it. Holiday Heart is actually not a bad film. It's starring Vin Rames, who gives us a great performance, and the great Alfre Woodard. Black movie about a gay man who, a cross-dresser who, is very loved in his community. He ends up taking in a drug addict and her daughter, and you can probably kind of guess where it goes from there. It's actually quite a touching film, TV movie, so it is got those cheesy kind of, quirkiness to it, but it is pretty hardcore. So I would definitely check this out if you're an LGBT fan. I'm going to give Holiday Heart, I think in my review, I gave it a 6.9. So I think I'm just going to roll with that. Repo Man, 1984, directed by Alex Cox. Now, I've been wanting to see this movie for a long, long time. This is one of those movies like you hear about all through your childhood and your life, and you don't see it until you're much older. This is one of those for me. I actually love this movie. I thought Repo Man was awesome. Emilio, this is probably his best role, bro. It's about a young punk rocker who ends up becoming a repo man and repossessing cars. But there's a lot more than meets the eye in this film. It takes some weird, interesting turns that you kind of just gotta roll with, bro. But I think if you do, you'll be very pleased. I'm going to give Repo Man a 7.9 out of 10. Good Morning, 1959, directed by Yasujiro Ozu. Anyone who's watched this channel knows I'm a big Ozu fan. This film, just like his others, are incredible. Good Morning is about a group of young boys who are obsessed with watching TV, okay? These boys, they literally protest and they stop talking to everyone except each other until their parents hunker down and buy them a TV. I know it seems like I just gave the whole film away, but you need to watch it. This is a very good film, a great coming-of-age story, and it's got its cute little quirkinesses and funny little jokes in it, just like most Ozu films do. I would suggest this to anyone, really. I'm going to give Good Morning an 8 out of 10. Air Doll, 2009, directed by Hirokazu Kurita. Well, I have been wanting to watch this movie for quite some time. I'm a big fan of the lead actress in it, and it was well worth all the time I waited. Wow, what a great film. I love this film. It's about a young woman who is actually a sex doll who comes to life and begins to have life on her own. And bro, the way this movie's played out is just, it's so good. It's so crazy. It's so creative. I loved it. I thought it was effing brilliant. It's a top 5 of the month. This is a film you got to check out. I'm going to give Air Doll a 9.2 out of 10. The Loveless, 1981, directed by Catherine Bigelow and Monty Montgomery. Well, we got an early Willem Dafoe role here. Willem Dafoe is such a badass. He plays a biker guy who kind of roams through this town, and this movie's actually quite plotless. This film is really about a guy who, I guess, he learns some things in this short amount of time about himself and humans and how cruel life can be. But this film doesn't spell that out for you at all. I think you have to read between the lines on it. This film is actually a lot better than I expected, but it's not amazing. But Willem Dafoe is incredible as usual. I would suggest this to honestly, I would suggest it to 70s fans, even though it's an 80s movie, feels like a 70s movie. I'm going to give The Loveless a 7.3 out of 10. Death by Temptation, 1990, directed by James Bond III. Another request for the month, and I actually found this film very interesting. A black film from the early 90s, a horror film about a succubus woman who is sleeping and slaying all these crazy horny men. It's interesting. If you're a fan of 90s black cinema, this is absolutely one you have to watch. I would suggest this though to horror fans. If you're a deep horror fan, you should watch it. You may not like it, but it's decent. I'm going to give Death by Temptation. In my review, which I'll link down below for you, I want to say I gave this a 6.9 or maybe even a 7. I'm going to just roll with a 7. So we'll give it a 7 out of 10. Brick, 2005, directed by Rian Johnson. Rian Johnson has grown to be a great director. We all mostly know him for like Knives Out, Star Wars, whatever, Looper. But this film here, one of his early ones, pretty good. Interesting murder mystery starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's about a guy trying to figure out what happened to his ex-girlfriend. And in the process, he ends up getting caught up in some crazy stuff. This is a good little high school mystery. Wouldn't really call it a coming-of-age story, but it is a high school movie. I'm going to give Brick a 7.4 out of 10. Deep Blue Sea, 1999, directed by Renny Harlin. Well, I saw this movie before, back when I was young. I didn't like it then, and I don't like it now. It's so bad. But it is watchable. It's got that 90s charm to it, that late 90s charm to it, especially like the late 90s horror film charm to it. I mean, this movie's hella successful, made a bunch of money, and it spawned a bunch of shitty sequels. So if you're a shark fan, a horror fan, I mean, give it a watch. It's one of those movies you should see probably before you die. But I'm going to give Deep Blue Sea a 5.9 out of 10. Flubber, 1997, directed by Les Mayfield. God, this movie is so bad. Like, I remember kind of liking this when I was a kid, but watching it as an adult, this movie fucking sucked. It was bad. Robin Williams, the only thing that makes it even worth watching. It's such a bad plot. It's just a mess. I'm gonna give Flubber. I wouldn't suggest this to anyone. I'm gonna give Flubber a 5 out of 10. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, 2002, directed by George Clooney. Well, George Clooney's a pretty good director. This movie's decent. Sam Rockwell giving us a great performance. It's about a guy who invents a bunch of game shows, but he starts kind of going crazy, and he's a sex crazed, sex addict, and he's got a lot of issues, but it's an interesting character study. I think this is based on a real guy, I'm pretty sure. It's definitely worth checking out once. I won't say it'll be your favorite, but it's worth checking out once. I'm going to give Confessions of a Dangerous Mind a 7 out of 10. Baby Teeth, 2019, directed by Shannon Murphy. All right, I'm going to go ahead and let y'all know right now, this is the top 5 of the month. Maybe, this is a favorite of the month. This and the first Slam Dunk are probably my 2 favorites. God, this movie is great. It's about a young woman, a young teenage woman who's terminally ill, and she ends up meeting a low-level drug dealer and addict, and they end up forming this very interesting relationship. And I must say, this was one of the most beautiful films I've ever watched. I thought it was beautifully executed, well directed, cinematography's great, acting's great. I loved it. I loved everything about it, and I copped it on Blu-ray, and I can't wait to watch it again. I would suggest this movie to anyone. I think everyone should start watching more films like this. I'm going to give Baby Teeth a 9.7 out of 10. And I know y'all might think that's high, but I don't fucking care. Summer Interlude, 1951, directed by the GOAT Ingmar Bergman. We all know Ingmar Bergman is one of my favorite directors. Yeah, he might be my all-time favorite. He's absolutely incredible. Another incredible film from him. This film is about a young dancer who ends up falling in love with the man she met. And unfortunately, this man dies, and she's kind of going through coping with that loss. And as she travels and is getting prepared for her new life, we go through her mind and see what happened and what led up to it. Brilliant film as usual. It's Ingmar. I'm going to give Summer Interlude an 8.6 out of 10. The Flat Earth, 2017, directed by Ty Evans. Okay, you guys, a lot of you aren't going to know what this is. This is a skateboarding film. And the reason I put it in here because this film's execution is well worth talking about in a list with regular movies. The Flat Earth is one of the coolest skateboard movies I've seen in a while. It features some of the dopest pros from today. Jamie Foy has got the finale in this movie, and my God, if you guys are skaters or know about skating or watch skating, we know Jamie Foy is one of the best in the game right now. Dude, he kills it. Chase Webb, oh my God, kills it. These guys are putting out some of the best skating you're ever gonna see. The way this shit is edited is crazy. The cinematography is crazy. The places they go, do the bail section, like, oh, if you're a skater, you gotta watch this. Now, I'm gonna grade this as a skate video and not a movie. So I'm gonna give The Flat Earth an 8.5 out of 10. But this is a skate video, guys. But if you think skating's cool, I'll watch this shit, dude. It is really cool, man. Godspeed, 2021, directed by Devontae Jolly. Now, a lot of you guys might have heard of this movie. It's another skateboard video. But this shit blew up. This thing has almost 7 million views on YouTube. And I see why. This video is fucking awesome. It features a bunch of the best pros from today, a bunch of the funniest guys. Ashad Ware, like, he is fucking hilarious, dude. You got goddamn Alex Midler, who gives one of the craziest parts we've ever seen. Dude, these kids are having so much fun in this movie. So much bro out moments. Robert Neal, dude, Zion Wright, like, these guys are insane. Dope urban modern day bro out skate movie that I think anyone, whether you like skateboarding or not, would have a really good time with. Good music, everything. I mean, so many non-skaters watch this movie, dude. Check it out. It is fun time, and you might want to start skating after you watch this. I'm going to give Godspeed, I'm judging this as a skate video, a 9.3 out of 10. Prince of Tides, 1991, directed by Barbra Streisand. This is another request from a subscriber, and I actually really like this movie. Interesting little 90s, early 90s love story. Nick Nolte, Barbra Streisand. It's about a man who moves from the South to New York City to help try and take care of his sister who's been in the hospital. And he ends up falling in love with her therapist. Corny, cheesy romance? Maybe. But I loved it and I don't care. So I did review it. I'll link it below if you guys are interested. I'm going to give it what I gave it in my review, which is an 8 out of 10. If you're a 90s fan, I would suggest this. Prince of Broadway, 2008, directed by Sean Baker. Sean Baker, the GOAT, one of my faves. He just won the Palm. Shout outs to him. This is one of his older films. and it's another masterpiece under his belt. This film's about I'm not sure where the fella's supposed to be from. I think somewhere in Africa, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe maybe from an island. I'm not sure where. I don't know if they even say it. They might. He's a hustler. He sells fake purses and shoes, fake Louis, fake Nikes and shit like that out in New York City. And he ends up having to take care of this kid who may or may not be his son that he didn't know he had. And it's just about this guy who embraces fatherhood. You could see the early comings of the Florida Project watching this movie and Sean Baker's connection with children and how great he is with them. I would suggest this movie to absolutely anyone. Very close to making the top 5 of the month. I am going to give Prince of Broadway an 8.7 out of 10. The Enforcer, 1976, directed by James Fargo. The third movie in the Dirty Harry series. I know I talked about Sudden Impact first. I probably should have did that after that, but whatever. This movie's much better than that. This movie is Clint Eastwood being Clint Eastwood. He teams up with this young lady, and he has to train this young woman, who he's reluctant to, on how to be a good cop. The ending kind of knocked my socks off a little bit. If you're a Clint fan, a Dirty Harry fan, if you've watched the series, obviously you should watch this one too. I like this one. I'm going to give The Enforcer 7.2 out of 10. Hour of the Wolf, 1968, directed by the GOAT, Ingmar Bergman. Ingmar Bergman's take on horror, and man, he can do anything. This film was absolutely incredible. It was creepy. It was dope. I loved it. I thought Ingmar really brought his A game in this movie, and I didn't know he had such skills with horror. This film is about a couple. They're on an island. Very similar trope to a lot of Ingmar movies, but they always go in a direction you don't take. This couple ends up kind of going through it as the husband starts going freaking crazy, man. I'm going to leave it at that. Check this one out for sure. I'm going to give Hour of the Wolf an 8.7 out of 10. Last but certainly not least, Summertime, 1955, directed by another GOAT, David Lean. This film stars a GOAT, one of the best of all time, Katharine Hepburn. In an older role for her, she plays a middle-aged woman who takes a trip to Venice alone and ends up having fun and meeting people and enjoying life. I could see this being like the early comings of like an Eat, Pray, Love or something like that. There's another film I just saw, or even some early Romare films like The Green Ray or, stuff like that, where you see these films where women take vacations alone and discover a lot about themselves. This film was absolutely incredible. Very close to making it to the top 5. Katharine Hepburn. God, what a star she was. I would suggest this film to anyone. I'm going to give Summertime an 8.8 out of 10. Guys, thank you so much for watching my Everything I Watched in July. Let me know what you've watched. Guys, do me a huge favor. Like and subscribe. It's free. Let me know if there's a film or topic you'd like me to review. Follow me on Letterboxd, Ralph Vader. I'll link that below. I got a podcast with my buddy, The Cutting Room Floor. I'll link that below as well for more movie content. Guys, I will be back next week. And don't forget the popcorn.